Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good, you're our first member.
Yeah.
We have one.
Coming down to the wire.
I know. And I know Janet was just released that she's probably about 5 minutes late,
Okay.
but I haven't heard from Raj. If you're around me.
I think I can wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we heavy on the
I said,
Robert's
we
rules?
still have, you mean, yeah, but yes, that's how we meet today. But no, yeah, so I didn't get, I only got one cancellation.
Well,
Terrible. What do you
so
think?
you don't have a forum, you just push through or?
Well, you're not supposed to actually formally meet.
Okay.
So I'll see, sometimes we've gone ahead and just let the presenter do our time or something. Sure. But I don't take minutes. Sorry, what do you?
I just need it
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you need to do it up there though.
Oh,
To that, to that computer or to this.
oh, okay. I cannot reach. That's just not.
Let me, I don't know why it's up there. It used to be down here.
I'm gonna go.
Move or do anything. Oh, yeah. Am I doing it wrong?
I think the rule of thumb is you always have to do it 3 times.
I know.
And then it eventually goes in.
Okay. And then this is actually that computer.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So then I just.
Yeah, you should then click the mouse to it.
All of it and just killers do. And I was working on my curtain. I use the space data that was in the conference room and they shared those on videos. And I'm like, can we do everything in the world? And how would we? It's like, yeah. So I know we like. Yeah, it's like. So we went as commission downtown to use their, because ours doesn't have insurance.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, can we use that? So.
Hey, no.
Good, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I don't know, I was so overwhelmed. Yeah. And,
Got another?
Thank you.
Just 2 of us now?
I haven't heard from Raj.
Well, what about Megan? Did that?
Yeah, I mean, she would count. I haven't heard, nobody's canceled other than I know Kelly, I think, had a graduation or something.
we did a bunch of sets, all of 2000. And then we packed up and I labeled all the other things that were getting filled up that page.
Does quorum take an account of the, do we have any open positions still?
Photo.
I only do form by how many members.
Okay, so there's an open spot, it doesn't matter.
She just said. You
should say you could.
Oh, yeah. Do, I can go get those.
Well, you don't have to.
Performance.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just figured.
Oh, you're here. Okay. We should have.
They had movers coming in.
Need 4?
Yes.
Alright.
Jana says she is coming, so she should be here in minutes.
Okay.
And then we would have our report.
We could buy all new things for that. So.
Did you park them for
Really
her?
no time.
Okay, you,
Do I have
okay, I'll definitely, let me just,
Yeah. I mean,
while we wait.
Thanks.
That weekend to go to Halifax for that. So I mean, I was thinking, we're flying out of the country. It's a little.
Yeah.
like, I can do a lot of stuff. I can pull off a lot of things, but this, I cannot ever do that. Yes. It was. And then they didn't know, and then the whole part about the second one was unknown until. Also.
Yep.
So it has flow loss now. Well, my low power is, I mean, it has to be in there.
So.
There's no
We're asking
what
what
are
are
certifications that no.
certifications.
No, it's not.
It didn't work this time. It'll be, come back next year.
Come back.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, we got a year, breathe. Yeah, we're okay now.
I thought we were gonna have to spend a bunch of money in a month.
Yeah, I was.
We're gonna have a party.
It was put together.
But no.
Well, good.
Yeah, we can take a breather first until next session.
No more Tampa River.
No, we did, well, we would have definitely gotten in trouble for that with the legislature. We can't throw any parties, we can't, basically can't have any fun.
I want to say if we had a special meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, misters on every sidewalk.
What?
Misters on every sidewalk.
Yeah, there you go.
What is channel district using? That's just building out.
Infrastructure, spending a lot of money on infrastructure.
But there's still a lot left.
Yeah, they're in process right now, still doing all the additional infrastructure work.
What I mean, the amount of funds they have.
Oh, well, it's tight because of Florida Aquarium, we're giving, the grant for Florida Aquarium.
Over the expansion.
Yeah, expansion, all the infrastructure is still happening. Yeah, funds are pretty committed.
Oh, and the new park too, right? 'Cause they took down
Park,
the hills.
yeah, there's gonna be a urban park there, Washington Street Park is gonna be renovated. And yeah, so a lot of money already is tied up.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because I think that was causing the issue of them saying they canceled the.
The money's definitely identified 2 projects. And if
Yeah.
it wasn't, then those money would have been.
Yeah.
Unspendable because they want everything identified.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, unfortunately, it's towns have this budget because it's CDD, Tampa Heights.
Yeah.
So most of my budgets are pretty well aligned with a project.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah, so I didn't go like.
We open the computers, we have each of.
But
But isn't the aquarium outside of the boundary?
it's in the channel district. We already.
Oh, okay. So it goes on the east side of Candleside Drive, the boundary?
Yeah, I can't think of the exact boundary right now, but the aquarium is definitely in that,
Okay,
in the channel district CRA.
yeah,
Oh, my gosh.
okay.
So it's obviously out there.
Okay.
This place, so I moved. So he's here just for this presentation.
Okay.
So really it was only regulations. Yeah.
But then should we just do these first? I mean, you said this is the mapping, right?
Yes. This will be now.
Okay, so then should we just do this straight into Professor Grant, just to let them go, because they do that? Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. We don't have to-
Yeah.
We can go right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because, they.
Okay, we can start. We have four. Oh, you're fine.
It is 5:38, calling to order the June 17th Tampa Heights Riverfront Community Redevelopment meeting. And all. Scared?
Yeah, or we can just go around the room, just,
Okay,
and I'll type it as you say your name.
Roger Patel,
Joanna Davis.
David Reed.
Drew Grimminger.
Back.
all right. Any public comments? Public comments? Move on to action items. So approval of the March 2025 meeting minutes. Everyone wants to take a look at that. Any changes or amendments as to those?
Move approval.
There's a second to approve, second. Any discussion? Discussion. Motion to approve the March 2025 meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Next is CRA Commercial Grants Division Team.
Save this to go. Oh, trust me. There's some trouble with the thing.
Oh, no, it's not. Sorry.
Oh, maybe.
That's why.
Yes.
Yes, there we
Well, I
go.
didn't, I could either.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are your commercial grants division. My name is Dee Reed. Can you see me? I'll come around here. Sorry. My name is Dee Reed. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator. And these lovely young ladies, we have Tiffany, Andrea, and Celeste. These are your Economic Development Specialists. We are here to present to you the update to, or the proposed update to the commercial grants policy. We thank you for your time, for allowing us to come and speak with you this evening. We have allotted 20 minutes at the end of the presentation for question and answers. So we ask, if you can, please save your questions to the end of the presentation. Feel free to jot any questions down as they come to mind so that you don't forget them. And if you think you may want us to take you back to a slide, feel free to jot that down as well, and we can just scroll back to that slide, okay? Right, we will jump right in. So following the approval of the current grant policy, this team alone has conducted at least, or I want to say more than 75 pre-application meetings. And that's not even half of the inquiries that we've fielded, and that's just answering simple questions, explaining the grants, explaining eligibility, how the process works, things like that. Things that are questions or inquiries that may not necessarily have reached the process of them submitting an application. Through those various discussions, we've identified several areas of improvement. And so we identified some of those areas to include elements that may not have been outlined clearly, guidelines not quite accomplishing the board's intent, terminology not specifying how it will be applied, and initiatives not having as great an impact as we intended or expected. So we've gone back and we're proposing some revisions to address those deficiencies. So I'm going to turn it over to Celeste and let her dive into some of those proposed revisions.
So here are some proposed revisions that are consistent with the board directives. The first one, special project and non-city funding requests will be limited to $1 million and city funded requests to $5 million. Guidelines and limits are also proposed for city funding requests. Any expenditure over 1 million will be reserved for CRA initiated projects and must follow the city's procurement process. We're also proposing to establish parameters for allocating a portion of the special project grant / funding grant award funds to soft costs like architectural and design fees, and specifying them as reimbursement only. We're proposing to offer tax exempt properties access to exterior grant reimbursement opportunities. And unfortunately, due to the city's ethics policies, CAC members would be ineligible to apply for the special projects grant, but they may still apply for the standard grants. We're also proposing to remove the limit on legacy credit based on the owner's TIF contribution per property and define how often a property can receive legacy credit.
Additional proposed updates to the commercial grant policy. Application submission, language to allow special projects funding requests applicants to apply for and obtain permits following their pre-application meeting prior to receiving their award letter or executed grant / funding agreement. This will allow funding request applicants to apply for their permits after their pre-application meeting, but before receiving the award letter or signing an agreement. Award notification, revising the tiered funding to combine levels 1 and 2, requiring grant agreements and restricted covenants for all awards, reclassifying the top funding category as level 3, reassigning it to CRA initiated projects, and outlining the process. This will allow revising tiered funding by merging levels 1 and 2 into a new level 1, renaming the top tier as level 3, updating the process for CRA initiated project, and finally requiring agreements and restricted covenants for all grants. Appeal, adding language to specify the process for appealing staff's award decisions and specifying the basis options for which appeals may be requested. The policy updates will outline the appeal process for staff award decisions and define valid reasons for appeals. Residential grants, adding the newly approved residential grant process to the policy. The updated grant policy will include new residential grant processes to include the award process, AMI limits, the application steps, and more. For additional information and details, you can contact the residential housing team.
Some of the proposed changes are clarifications of our existing internal policies that appear to be potential confusion points for some applicants, such as defining our intended meaning for commercial use and mixed use, consistent with definitions already established in the city's zoning code, universally applying the prohibition to reimburse for sweat equity or to contractors with a familial or financial relationship to the owner or the applicant, and specifying that the property owner's attendance is required for all pre-application meetings. We've also added more specific language to allow monthly progress payments and define the initial deposit amounts for those applicants using the direct contractor payment process. And some of the recommended changes apply only to specific grants, such as for the pre-development grant. We're changing the structure to a consolidated scope of service, establishing a timeline to start construction of a design project, requiring repayment for designs ultimately never constructed, updating the professional services contracting structure, and providing additional scoring opportunities to qualify for the grant. For the exterior grant, amendments include adding art installations such as murals to the eligible improvements and updating the scoring matrix with additional bonus points opportunities. There were 5 items related to existing requirements in the policy where we asked the board in June at their meeting to clarify their intent, to make sure we were applying the policy in the spirit intended by the board. The direction provided by the board at the meeting, which will be incorporated in the proposed changes, was to limit the architectural and historic preservation staff feedback for buildings 50 years and older that were not already subject to historic review under the city code to only a recommendation for restoration or reconstruction. Revising the interior grant to limit eligible improvements to those required to bring the structure into building code compliance, such as upgrading fire, electrical, plumbing, structural stabilization, and ADA accessibility. Removing the eligibility restriction on restaurants based on their allowed revenue for alcohol sales. Not to expand the list of ineligible alcohol-focused establishments, leaving restrictions in place just for bars, lounges, and nightclubs. And finally, requiring full repayment of the grant amount for projects that transfer ownership to a tax-exempt entity or default during the first 5 years of the restrictive covenants.
This is the recap of the changes and how they impact specific groups. Revising reimbursable improvement. R is added as a reimbursable expense for exterior grants. And there are proposed changes that will limit what is reimbursable for the interior grants. Adding language referring to the definition of commercial and mixed use in the policy. The definitions are added to the interior and exterior grants to specify the meaning of each word. Adding additional point opportunities to the application scoring criteria. Additional points are added to the scorecard for the exterior, interior, and pre-development grants. Restructured grant, added construction timeline, and incorporated payment terms. It is proposed that the pre-development level 1 and level 2 grant be combined into one, which will incorporate the timeline and commitment.
This table details the proposed revisions made to special project and funding requests. For requests less than $500,000, they will fall into the special projects category. For funding requests or requests over $500,000, and all city requests will be funding requests. We're proposing to establish a maximum award percentage to contribute towards overall project costs. For the fourth revision, we're proposing to establish parameters for allocating a portion of the award for soft costs and specifying them as reimbursement only. These would include architectural design engineering fees, permit fees, site remediation and stabilization. We've proposed to revise the required waiting period to apply for another grant for special projects. And lastly, we're proposing revisions that would allow for special project and funding request applicants to apply for permits after the successful completion of pre-application meetings to obtain application required estimates for the proposed improvements. However, work will still not be commenced prior to receiving an award letter or executed grant/funding agreement. This will be for both special projects and funding requests. So that concludes our update portion of the presentation. If you have any questions about the grants or want more information or want to initiate the application process, please visit our website shown here on the screen. The request for consultation button will be what you click to submit an inquiry, and one of us staff members will get in touch with you.
All right, so Celeste is gonna put 20 minutes on there, and we will open the floor for any questions you may have. We will ask if you can keep the questions limited to the update. If you have any project-specific or grant-specific questions related to a property, feel free to reach out to us and we'll schedule some time and really talk with you. But we would like to answer any questions you have regarding the policy update.
For the grants, has anyone actually appealed the process or like when they requested a grant?
We've not had an appeal yet. No.
Okay, but and then for the grant funding, is it the property owner would have to pay upfront and then get reimbursed by the city, or is the city paying directly to the vendor?
So typically, all of the grants are reimbursement. There's the opportunity to be approved for direct contractor payment. However, if you are going to utilize that option, your lending agency, if you're borrowing money from a bank or some type of lending agency, they must have something in place to manage the construction. So they would have to validate. So for example, your contractor submits an invoice for a material, or say in there, let's say, for example, they submit an invoice and say that they're replacing windows and they replaced 30% of the windows and they've purchased all of the glass or whatever, and they're storing that on property. Either the lending agency needs to have some type of inspection process in place, or the applicant can have someone separate, but someone needs to confirm that those things are secured. So 30% of the work has to have been completed, or the material has to have been acquired and be on site in order for us to pay them directly. So you basically they need to have some type of billing or construction management process in place.
Third-party construction
Yeah.
management.
Like the bank will have an inspection report and then
Yeah.
that gets sent out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for the over $1 million, those are obviously would be for like the large scale projects where there's like offsite improvements and all that kind of stuff where it's funding, or?
So over $1 million would be reserved for CRA initiated projects. So say, for example, in your CAC, your CRP, you've identified, and I'm just going to throw something out there, a need for infrastructure, or so you all want to see some infrastructure improvements in a certain area. If that's something that your CAC has come up with, then we would get with the city and come up with a project, and then we could fund over $1 million towards that project. We're just capping what can be requested.
Okay.
But the CRA and the board has the authority to spend more or allocate more than $1 million.
Okay.
And it's really, the whole intent behind that is really to ensure that we're spending the money from a CRP standpoint, right? All of our funds really should be driven by our CRPs. And so we're trying to just kind of tighten the reins on that.
Or I guess, because some of the funds like in West Tampa, you could use for like roof repairs and stuff, correct? Like for the older historic homes, residents can?
I'm not sure how, you'd have to speak with the residential team on that. I'm not sure.
Well,
how
this is
much-
just for.
Yeah, this is just commercial. Yeah.
Okay. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No other? Wow, that's a first. All right.
Any property would have to be in, does it have to be in a district though?
Yes. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Oh, okay.
Sorry, we have.
Professor Green has a question.
Professor Green has more.
Special projects grants.
Mhm.
What exactly does that fall into any one of the three categories that you, is that something?
The special projects grant is the non-standard grant we have that is really there to give the board some latitude to fund projects that may not fit into the other categories, the interior, the exterior, the pre-development, but it's consistent with and furthers the CRP. So it's sort of it's for like unique projects that may be able to further the CRP that don't fit into other categories. For example, for most of our projects, a nonprofit could not apply for the grant because they don't generate tax revenue or property tax revenue. So if they wanted to come do a project, say they wanted to renovate a historic building or something, they couldn't qualify for the grants. They may be able to apply for a special projects grant instead.
So with like the STRAS, that falls under special projects then? Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Yeah. I'm not sure that interviews, if they have to leave. So you met the commercial grants team. Professor Green is the gentleman who worked with his USF team on part of the CRP update. So he'll come to our August meeting and we'll dedicate the August meeting to the CRP updates. And since everyone is new on the CAC, I wanted him to do an overview and kind enough to do that for us in the August meeting. And then Karen is going to be a new CAC member. So she's attending tonight just to see what happens. And then she'll get CRA board approval to become an official Tampa Heights for the CAC. And then we have CRA director, well, Lisa, I knew.
Keisha Newsom, I'm a project coordinator for the special project funding grant. So those are for anything $500,000 and greater.
So Lisa is on our team as well. And then CRA director Cedric McCrae is in the room, officially CRA director now. He's here to observe, and then they're all running off to the West Tampa CAC.
To do it all over again. Have a good night, everyone. Nice to meet you
And
guys.
so we're not approving anything, we're just being informed.
Yes, and then if you had any questions, they're taking all the CAC, they're going to every single CAC,
Okay.
and then just taking any questions, feedback. If, anyone disagrees with what they're recommending, they're just trying to take all that information in from the CACs before they go back to the CRA board for final approval of the recommendations.
Yes, good evening, Cedric McCrae again. Thank you all for your level of volunteerism and serving on this CAC. We have a traveling road show. I'm in West Tampa, but I just wanted to formally introduce myself. Thank you, Ms. Orr, and just thank you for what you do for our CACs. So and with the presentation, yes, they're kind of soliciting feedback from the community advisory committees as we look to make some potential changes and augment and update the grants process and policy. And it was heavily discussed at our CRA board meeting last Thursday. And if you feel like you want to go back and watch that, you can on the city's meetings on demand.
All right, appreciate that.
No, thank you. Y'all enjoy the rest of you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks. The manager reports.
Yeah, so I wanted to provide you, we did get our numbers in from the property appraiser's office so that you can see we had a 6% based on what our draft budget was of what we were guesstimating would be our TIP revenue. Actually, we were keeping it flat because we didn't know if we'd have an increase. So we kept it flat, and that's what the budgets were that I've provided in the past. But we now have a huge $128,000 jump based on the preliminary numbers. So that's just a 6% increase. So we now look at our final numbers in June. But then I just went ahead and showed where the new PIP revenue amount, 2.2 million. We were budgeting the 2.1 on that far left column, but we actually have 2.2 million that we'll be budgeting for fiscal year 26. And so nothing's really changed. Everything's the same other than that increase, which, some of that money immediately goes to affordable housing because of the requirement to put 30% toward affordable housing. So a lot of that 128 went to affordable housing line items. And then the other went into neighborhood infrastructure. So that won't change much. This will be pretty much the budget. Even when the June numbers come in, it fluctuates minimally, those final numbers compared to the preliminary numbers. So this will be the budget that will go to the CRA board in July.
Have any CRAs actually allocated the affordable housing line item to anything yet? Like actually utilized it, or is everyone still trying to figure it out?
Yes, LD&D in the Encore footprint in Central Park requested, they actually are split between Central Park and downtown's boundaries. And they requested downtown funding. In fact, in the amount of $5.4 million, and that was approved by the CRA board
And what is that actually going towards on their project?
for the, just affordable housing. It's the unit creation.
Okay,
So it was an incentive for them to create affordable housing within their development. So they're setting aside a percentage of affordable housing units to utilize that for $5.4 million that was approved, that they requested.
did they come up with the calculation themselves, or the city already has?
They did.
Okay, so they can say, we're gonna do X amount of units, this is how much it costs to build.
Yeah, they had to provide all the financials and show how, justify their request.
And what's the definition of affordable? Is it like the workforce type housing, or is it like,
Workforce.
okay?
Yeah, 80% AMI. So, they wanted, the CRA board wants the workforce to be able to live in the downtown and well in all the CRAs.
Okay. So we'll have that opportunity in the event like Stetson gets developed or something like that, to be able to allocate these funds towards that.
Whoever applies is vetted. We have another, lady on the team by the name of B Parks, and she vets all those applications.
Yeah.
And then brings them to the CRA board for final approval.
Okay.
But whoever applies, and.
I just mean within our boundaries, that's really the only development piece, because everything else is allocated to Soho Capital, so that's what I meant, not that, only they could apply.
Yeah. So, anyone can submit an application, and then B does have like a matrix of what she has to follow. Size of the units, they're looking at 1,000 square feet. They don't want the micro units of 350 square feet. They want 1,000. So there's a matrix that B has to follow that, see if it aligns, the request aligns with what the CRA board wants to see.
Okay. That's good, it's being used.
Yeah, now, B is swamped. Now that the programs are in place, because they were being established and now they're established, she is inundated with inquiries.
Yeah, because that really makes a huge difference too.
Yeah.
I mean, on the project side.
So we're gonna see a lot of traction over the next few months with those affordable housing dollars being spent.
Yeah.
So forgive me,
Mhm.
but I don't really understand this. So start with the first column, which is the fiscal year 25 revised budget. You've got 2,142,000 in total revenue. Get that, and I get that the column to the right says, okay, based on actual collections, we're going to have a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah, this is what actually has been paid out. Total consumption has been paid out from that number to the left.
So the total expenditures is significantly more than the revenue. So if there's no money for those things, they just don't get funded.
Yeah, so so this bottom number, 3.7.
Right.
That's what the revised budget, because we start with a draft type of budget.
Yep.
And then once everything's audited, then that becomes our revised budget, that everything's audited, it's correct. So we have the 3.7. As of this fiscal year, which we're in fiscal year 25, we've spent 1.6 of that 3.7.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm accustomed to seeing is your revenue and your expense number at least add up, right?
Mhm.
You're at zero or maybe.
Well, we still have through September.
Okay.
So
So how do we decide as we're going? So let's take down payment assistance. We had a budget for $125,000 there. We're now through June or May, and we have funded none of that. Do we still expect to fund that at some point?
yes, we'll use and the money's roll over. That's what's unique about CRA dollars, and like the city general fund, the CRA TIF dollars roll year to year.
Okay.
So we're not under the gun to have to spend that money by September 30th. We can actually still spend it in future fiscal years. So even though that 124 has not been spent, you will have access to it in fiscal year 26.
So, well, does that money exist somewhere, or that's a budget item?
It's Yeah, it's money set aside out of the fiscal year.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's set aside, it's available with an account screen. It has its own account number.
Okay.
So if B were to receive an application that fit within the down payment assistance, she has 124,000 that she could apply for it.
okay, so these are buckets of money that are available if an applicant meets the requirements to receive.
Correct.
So
And they'd have to be moving into their, like, so for that line item in particular, that's for an applicant for down payment for moving, and they'd have to be moving into the district, correct?
Yeah, because these dollars can only
Yeah.
be spent within the geographic boundaries of the.
Yeah, and because it's affordable housing, I'm assuming that's residential, that, you know, down payment assistance, right?
Yes.
It's not like, but it's not for a down payment for a business to do affordable housing like a complex, right? This is for individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's another, goal of the
Right,
CRA
right.
boards is creating generational wealth and getting people into homes to stay in their home.
And to qualify for that, I'm assuming there's, you know, income requirements and that sort of thing. How much of the properties that are in our district are actually, you know, attainable for people who would qualify for the programs? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah. B, and I'll invite B here because she knows these programs in and out at this point. And some of the programs that may not apply to certain districts, for instance, downtown the Channel District, we realized that they needed more money in unit creation and conversion. So we've moved monies into that line item.
Yeah.
Knowing that we can incentivize developers to create those units of affordable housing. So she's just kind of monitoring to see which programs of the 5 that she manages are working, not working, and then realigning the funding appropriately.
Yeah.
This would more apply to like West Tampa and East Tampa where there are single family homes. Like
Right.
For our district, there's literally only 2 single family homes in the entire boundary and everything else is just the Pearl. There's no other
Yeah,
housing
that's true.
within us, so we can't really utilize it, but we still have to allocate it.
But those 2 single family homes probably also are expensive to the point where a person who could afford to buy them probably isn't going to qualify for the programs. I would assume.
Yeah, so that's why I guess East Tampa and West Tampa have more affordable
Yeah,
homes where this would make sense.
yeah, like 10 years ago, maybe.
So it's conceivable that money never gets spent or never gets granted.
Well, unless there's like a unit creation, I mean, even though some of the building is established, they can still convert units that are within those.
I mean, somebody built condos or something too, and then within the district, those could potentially.
Because I think St. Pete's doing that where people are building affordable housing for sale. So
Right.
like that, they're probably getting funds from this bucket, but then somebody who's actually buying it on the back end could probably apply for that to buy one of the units.
Okay, yeah, and I, forgive me, I'm still trying to figure this all out. So
Okay.
I'll ask one more question and
Okay.
I'll not waste everybody's time. But I'm just trying to understand the process. So for example, the historic Soul Walk Trail, there's $100,000. Presumably somewhere along the line, somebody had an idea for a Soul Walk Trail. They got it approved by the CAC. The CAC put aside money for that. And now that money is waiting for them to come and say, we've done this and we can show you that we qualify, and then they get paid.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
They apply for reimbursement. Basically.
Well, this is actually the city of Tampa's arts program manager, Robin Nye. She oversees because this Historic Soul Walk is a city project, city initiated project. And Robin Nye, our public arts program manager, she oversees the entire Soul Walk in the city.
So it's every CRA is putting in a.
Yeah, wherever that meanders appropriately, those CACs have set aside money. So Robin can eventually access that money when she gets to the Tampa Heights portion of that Soul Walk experience and overall project.
And the wayfinding's the same way, because it stretches between multiple CRAs, so just the signage to make it easier to get around.
Okay.
So everyone just allocates based on,
Those are the new fancy things that are kind of like an ours, they're on Palm, right?
They haven't
like
been
you mean the
installed
electronic
yet.
ones?
Oh, yeah. Are those not part of the wayfinding thing?
No,
Like
I don't
the-
think so.
Okay.
I think this is more like, it was all just like branding and
Yeah,
the same fonts and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, so all the signage that's in the downtown core areas now, the blue, those are all gonna go away and be replaced. So we actually have API, a company, a contractor, on board now that is, will work on the fabrication,
New design.
yeah, the design and all that, and then eventually installation. So we're replacing all the wayfinding signage in the 4 CRAs that are the downtown urban.
Gosh, so we are, just because we're a part of that plan, we are, a part of our budget is allocated to that, and it's not, we're not getting unique wayfinding signage or anything. It's all gonna be cohesive with some of the other districts, and not even some areas that aren't even within the district.
Yeah, well, they'll all be cohesive. The only change will be the backside of the sign, because we work with the partnership. The partnership also, downtown partnership also hired API to do branding for the individual neighborhoods that that are in their special services districts footprint.
Mhm.
So Tampa Heights, they established a certain look for a neighborhood branding for Tampa Heights, for Central Park.
Okay.
And so the backside of that new wayfinding will have that special branding that the partnership established. And then
So they'll all have something a little unique, but
Yes.
but also,
similar
Yeah.
with an added unique element on each, depending on which district you're in.
right.
Thank you, that's all.
I have a question. For the sculpture in the roundabout, the money is coming from here,
Yes. Yeah, and it's in
public art.
public art, yeah. So that's Highland and Palm, in parentheses, North Boulevard and Palm.
So total amount of money that is available is this number.
The 407, 407,000.
And so far, no money has been taken out.
No, because the call for artists is going out soon in June. So we don't have the artists on board yet to have the sculptor to pay for the sculpture.
How much is this sculpture?
They haven't, it hasn't been established yet. We're gonna put out, I can't remember what Corey oversees these projects, but in the call to artists, there'll be an amount put into the call for artists, so the artists can generally know how much. I don't know if Corey's putting a full 407 or putting 200 or 300,000. I'm not sure.
Corey's just spoke to us last time.
Yeah, the Sierra Arts
Mhm.
coordinator.
So Corey, we know better how to manage if the ask is unreasonable. Like Corey has his own,
Idea of what it should cost.
Yeah, working with Robin, who's been with the city for 20+ years, has a really good sense of what comparable size sculptures and, what it should likely
I
cost.
think Robin mentioned like it shouldn't even go anywhere near that for.
Yeah,
It was like 110,000, she said, or something like that.
yeah, that might be for one, I don't
Yeah.
know, because we're doing two, so I don't think it'll exhaust the 400,000.
We had the budget for a cushion, so we thought we'd just put it in so that we don't have to come back and ask for it later on. If there was something, really nice they came up with, we don't have to go back to ask for additional budget.
Yeah,
and then might be a silly question, but where exactly did this money come from?
so when a CRA is established, it basically freezes the tax revenue of that year so that the county agrees that whenever a CRA is established, the incremental amount of taxes that go up go back only into that district. So it's, Trent, you may be able to explain that to me, but
So it's essentially the incremental increase of annual taxes So whatever a property owner's assessment is, as it increases, as their normal tax increases, that gets cited, that goes into the TIF fund.
Okay. And the homeowner paying, you said, ad valorem?
Right, so any private property, that could be a business, a homeowner, any private property.
And do they have a say on where their tax money goes to? Or that's really just left up to?
No,
That's
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that these are all residents or people who have interest in the neighborhood to speak up. And then, like Channel District, a lot of the residents actually come out, not just board members. So they've had the, well, that's where like public comment, so they'll come and give their input and all of that. And I guess the idea is if it's supposed to start as a blighted neighborhood, as it improves, everyone's property values slowly go up. And then that gets captured and respent into the neighborhood to increase, or redevelop the neighborhood.
Make it even better.
Yeah.
And this is the total list that any taxpayer's money can go to.
Yeah, or we can establish new, if there's a new idea, or just for instance, the roundabouts. At one point, the roundabouts wouldn't have been in the budget, but the advisory committee, this committee wanted the roundabouts in the budget, so we developed that line item. So these are the established line items right now, but things can be added, they can be removed if a project doesn't come to fruition.
So professional services, is there a, I guess, a different area to find what professional services?
So that might be like a contractor, so say, for instance, we hired Professor Green and the USF team to do the CRP update. That would be a professional outside contractor that is updating the community redevelopment plan.
Okay.
And it's turkey, that's we got money to use. That's a great thing. So,
Professor Green and his team have probably been working for almost a year now.
Oh, quite long.
I mean, just.
Only because of the delays getting it
Yeah.
through legal and, you know, to get it finally to the CRA board for review.
Yeah,
So not, the length of time, not on him, it's been waiting for us to get it reviewed.
I mean, just on the actual plan, like interviews and all that kind of stuff, it's a long process,
Yes,
putting everything together.
I'll have a lot more to say about that.
Yeah, so the August meeting is dedicated to him and to let you all know, you know, the process of the CRP, and it did get approved by planning commission.
Yep.
So it went to the CRA board, approved there, it just went to the planning commission. It was more last week, it was approved with my minimal changes, and so now it's going back to the CRA board in July for approval, to then go to city council for final approval. And then we have blessed this CRP. And so, and then just in here, in the last page of your budget is the capital projects. We don't have any commercial grants, the team that spoke tonight, we haven't had any applicants for any of those grants. So we don't have a tracker in your packet for that, but these are the projects that are being worked on in Tampa Heights and their status. And then there are no July CAC meetings, no CAC are meeting in July, it's a summer respite. And we have difficulty getting quorum with so many people traveling and summer breaks and just lots of, you know, other scheduled things going on, so we've decided not to hold any July CAC meeting. So our next meeting will be August 19th.
And you said the artist call is going on this month or not?
Corey's goal is to get it out in was to get it out at the end of June, but he's just waiting on it for it to be reviewed and approved, so that he can get it out on the street. But his goal was June.
And how is that gonna be published? I'd love to share something with the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, he'll let me know.
Okay.
And then it does get broadcast nationally.
If you could send me a link or.
Yeah, you'll get the information, right, once it goes live.
Yeah,
and then
Corey
you
will.
can send it to our emails.
We can share with the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
How often are these numbers updated?
Monthly.
Now that I see the numbers, could I do a sculpture?
It just happens to cost $200,000.
Yeah.
I know exactly how much.
You wanted to go big.
I want to go big. Miles, we shouldn't leave any money on the table.
Is it different? So on this last page, it has budgeted for each one, it has 150,000, which is only like a total of 300, whereas on the actual, I guess the page before it, it has 407,000. I don't know what the,
Yeah, like you said earlier, we did, at the time, did not know what to put in that line item, so we probably, this was before me, but probably guesstimated a $400,000 amount,
Yes,
put it in the.
the city gave us a rough estimate. I think it was Robin. And then, so we said, because there was budget to cushion it. And so they don't have to come out just in case there is something unique that you didn't think of that someone could apply for. So this.
Well, you may have installation costs, you may have.
Well,
Yeah,
this includes all that.
yeah, engineering, all that.
So we're gonna go out at this budget, but then there is a cushion if there is something, somebody comes up with.
Like lighting that we didn't.
Lighting, landscaping,
So
yeah.
things
Yeah.
that there's additional funding.
Right.
Because if we put 407, that artist will come back with 407.
Right, no, that's kind of what, so that's what I was asking. So we're kind of saying it's 300. And also, do we have the ability then, if for whatever reason, and I know we have talked about it wanting to be like working together, and so it's probably going to be one artist for both, I would assume, but that might not be the case. Do we have the ability, if for whatever reason one's more expensive than the other, can we move that with, or does it have to be?
Oh, yeah, that's for the entire project. So,
Okay.
so for either, that line item can be used
Yeah.
more on one than the other. So,
Because like on here, it has 150,000 for each, as on this last page.
yeah,
Whereas, like we said before, it has 407 for the two. And I don't know, this is all hypothetical, so it might be a waste of time too, but you might have something that's more expensive at one end because of whatever someone who's creative can think of that I'm not, they might have a good idea that everybody likes for whatever reason, but it might be more expensive to implement in one spot as opposed to
yeah,
the other location.
exactly.
I just wouldn't want that to hinder our,
No. And if, at the end of the day, if there's something that blows us away and it's more than that, then we can always move additional funding into that line item to help pay for that cost.
for the commercial grants, and this might have been a better question than for the people that presented it, but are we allowed to approach or like encourage like developments that are in our district to apply for that stuff?
Oh, of course,
Yeah,
yes.
I think they would want to, because
Yeah.
it's really been really underutilized, I think, across.
Well, my wife said that every time she drives across the bridge on Boulevard there by Blake, about like when you look to the east, what kind of like the parking garage that has the Sprouts building, there's like, it's just a concrete facade, and they could do something with that. I think it obviously, I don't know who exactly owns that building, but it's obviously commercial, and I think it's
Soho development.
Yeah.
Soho owns
I
that
think I
one
asked
too.
them last time about that. Can we use funds on a private property owners to put a mural or something?
Yeah, and right now, that's under Corey, would be the mural, and we don't, the city doesn't, just because we wouldn't be able to include it in our inventory of art we paid for. So we haven't been funding artwork on private property. Now the commercial grants, so say a business wants to do a mural, it would be what they're considering ancillary. So they can't request money for a mural, but if they're doing like windows and doors and other things that are really truly in the spirit of the grant, they can have an ancillary.
Gotcha. So then when they were talking about, applying for art grants, that would have to be on public land, so it could not be on a commercial piece of property that is owned privately.
Unless it's ancillary, but it's not the main grant funding request.
So the art has to be ancillary, or the funding has to be ancillary?
like a mural. So
Yeah.
say they were wanting to do, some a new sign, new windows, new doors, and then they would like to add a mural as well on the side of their building, that could be considered. But they couldn't just request funding specifically for a mural.
Gotcha.
We have a question. And this didn't come up in the past, but as we were talking about the roundabouts, do you know if there's more to those roundabouts?
Well, yeah, and that's what I don't know, and so that's why that cushion is gonna be,
I think there is not currently.
because there are no stoplights, so.
Okay, because we're talking about, art installations, and I'm pretty sure they want to be.
Uplighting it.
Yeah.
I think when they increased the budget, they put a line item in their budget for the infrastructure, for the lighting and the power and all that, and then water if it needs it. Because obviously if you're doing plantings and all that in there, you would want the sprinkler system.
Because I'm thinking about all that work that was done, I didn't dig up something to get to those roundabouts. And I say that because the situation in East Tampa. But
What happened?
no, let's say an artist does a piece and well received. Obviously, you probably want to have it lit up at night, but there's no power to the roundabout itself. Tear up the road or go in deep. I'm not sure how to do it, but to get power over there to it to light the artwork. But in the city, there's an awful lot of infrastructure that's already been done. It's in place now.
Anytime you're working in a city, you're gonna have those kind of challenges.
Yeah.
With the built environment.
But since they have underground all the power to begin with, right, why didn't let's
Could be some concrete there, under there.
There could be, and a lot of times each states they can bore the river. So it'll add some expense, but we've got some cushion.
Any other new business? Covered everything. Member announcements? Nothing. All right, it's 6:30 PM. No, I don't even do a motion to adjourn,
No,
right?
we just adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourning our June 17th meeting at 6:30 PM on the dot. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.